Hi, I'm Steve Brewer, Executive of Insurance Solutions at CoreLogic, and thank you for joining me for a few moments this morning to explore digital strategies for embedding consumers into our insurance workflow. Now, I want to start today with a pop quiz, so get out your pens and papers and your thinking caps. When we say embedding consumers into the digital workflow, what's most important in that approach? Is it the consumer or is it the insurance workflow? Take a time, jot down your answer. We'll come back to that at the end. Now, in today's discussion, we're going to cover envisioning that end state. What is this end state we talk about for insurance workflow and claims and underwriting? What are some of the blockers to achieving the true value of enterprise transformation, and how can we overcome them? And we'll look at a few case studies in claims and underwriting at how our work at CoreLogic has been able to successfully deliver this exact type of end state. Now, with that in mind, and this passion we all share for digital transformation, what's the constant really for the past many decades? And that constant is that digital transformation still fails to meet its objectives most of the time. When I got out of school, the stats were somewhere between 80 and 90% of digital transformations failed. Well, we're doing better now, but unfortunately not that much. According to McKinsey, in 2020, about 70% of digital transformations fail. So we're going to spend a few moments investigating why that is, how we can create an environment for true transformation, and as I said, looking at a few case studies on how we can overcome those barriers and achieve that true alignment and embedding of consumers into our workflow. Now, the benefits of enterprise transformation are clear. Creating a new digital workflow and experience can cut cycle times. They can certainly reduce cost of operations. It can create a better digital customer experience and improve the lifetime value of customer. But there's many barriers that get in our way. And I like to think of maybe the top 5 or 6 that we should watch out for. And these are general's orders, the rise of machines, the mirage, the fear of our shadow, the general practitioner surgeon, and the bridge to nowhere. Now, what are these crazy things? Well, the first starts with general's orders. In the military, the culture is that of stated intent. So while there are specific orders, groups can adapt to reality on the ground and achieve the mission. And in our world today, in insurance, and really in any business, that culture of adaptation and change is so critical. But yet, too many times we see orders from the top down to change or implement a new system, and the people left doing the work are left scratching their heads trying to figure out what to do and whether they even want to. And rise of the machines is one we see quite a bit. Now, this is driven by the need for short-term incremental gain. And there's a lot we can do with technology, such as robotic process automation. But many of these projects are focused on making the current flawed or cumbersome workflow faster. And we can take people and time out of a process, but we're taking the same bad process and just doing it faster and doing it multiple times over. Another pitfall can be the mirage, which is that wonderful data analytic model technology that really can solve a pain point. It's got such great promise, but the execution, the delivery of that analytic, of that tech into the workflow becomes too cumbersome, too costly, or it only applies to a small fraction of our total volume for claims and underwriting, and so we can't really make it scale. And it's that mirage of what we want to get to, but we just can't ever get there. And many projects I've seen have been beset by the fear of our shadow. And I think of, if we're a person in a bright sun, our shadow is part of ourselves. It's a reflection of ourselves, and our consumers, a lot of times, our customers, our policyholders, can be our shadows, and we're afraid of what they might think or what they may do if I offer them a digital, or if I require them to come through digital channels. Will they go to someone else? We're not sure. We're afraid of that. And a lot of times it's actually the consumers that want those experiences that we're afraid to give them. What if a consumer actually could talk to me 24/7? What would I do? Right? So that fear prevents us from moving forward. The next is a general practitioner surgeon. Now, none of us would go in need of let's say, heart surgery and have our family doctor do the work. And yet, when it comes to implementing AI or cloud or these new powerful technologies, big data, a lot of times we have our teams learn on the job, and we want to truly deliver an enterprise transformation. with a team that isn't qualified to do that work. And it's very difficult because we have really smart people, but we're paying for them to learn on the job, and that's a challenge. Just last year in 2019, according to LinkedIn, there were 36,000 practitioners that self-identified as AI practitioners. 36,000 practitioners globally. That's not sufficient to truly bring AI to scale to achieve that benefit. So we all have people learning on the job to hopefully get to that endpoint. And then the last is I call the bridge to nowhere. The bridge to nowhere is where we start with one point solution. Let's say it's a consumer app. Let's say it's the next widget we want to implement into our workflow or out into our field force. And it works great. But then to use it, we have to process emails, we have to rekey information, we have to constantly run dual systems. And so the act of creating a little bit of a better experience actually creates more work and more complexity. And so these bridges to nowhere ultimately never get used. So these are some of the barriers that beset or diminish the value of enterprise digital transformation. Now, how can we overcome that? And think back to the quiz, right? What's more important now? Is it consumers or is it the workflow? And how should those two things be reconciled? So now we'll start to talk a little bit about the solution state. And my model is pretty simple, and really it's not rocket science. The first is, let's envision that future state that we want to accomplish in our underwriting and our claims operations. Let's map that process as to how it should work. And then ultimately, let's bring in technology, data, and analytics to make that process disappear. So I'll explain what I mean. The first is envisioning the future state. You heard Jim Collins say good is the enemy of great. I say complexity is the enemy of great. And for many processes in claims and underwriting organizations, what we find is that these processes have been created and developed over time, all for good reasons. And many of them are so complex, they can hardly even be documented. This is why startups are thriving in InsurTech, because they don't have that legacy baggage. So how do we disentangle the complexity of a claim operation, of an underwriting operation, to truly design that future state that will invite consumers to participate and be simple for our knowledge workers to administer and become trusted advisors? Then we need to map this process, and it's very important that we think about the change management, because when we map a process, we have to consider what's in it for them. And the them, of course, can be the consumer, but as importantly, the them should also be our workers. These are the knowledge workers that build and establish our brand and our relationship in the consumer's moment of need. This is the time where we can build trust if we empower our professionals to be just that, to be advisors in their role. And the process itself is not the end for that worker. Now, too many times when our processes are complex, there's a lot of check boxes, there's a lot of answers, there's a lot of steps, and our valuable employees are taking too much time and having too little productivity checking the box of the process and less time advising the customer. So when we have envisioned now a simple process and divested ourselves of years, in some cases decades, of rules and process steps, we then have a chance to bring in technology and analytics to make the process disappear. Now we're going to cover two case studies, one for claims and one for underwriting, about how workflow can be simplified and automated to achieve true digital transformation. On the underwriting side, we'll look at a solution CoreLogic calls our Underwriting Center. Now, our Underwriting Center is a digital hub that's meant to automate and streamline the process of residential and commercial underwriting. However, it only can work if the process of underwriting and the rules and data points themselves are streamlined. Now, many of the underwriting departments we work with have already greatly simplified the number of data points and rules they use to get a higher degree of straight-through processing. But there are still 30 to 50% of the data sets and the rules in underwriting that we think can be reduced or in fact, in some cases, eliminated. There's always that question on the form that just has to be asked. It generally applies in very, very few situations. So once we've simplified the steps and the pieces of information we can bring technology to automate not just the review process, but all the way through the communication, through the agent, through the broker, and to the insured. And so as we automate the rules of underwriting through Underwriting Center, we plug and play content and analytics to take what in many cases used to be a physical inspection and virtualize it. We can do that through partnerships and integrations into our digital hubs such as Nearmap, GIC, Google, and others. And we can now connect almost 80% of all inspections with a current image that's less than 1 year old. Now, we're still looking at a picture, and the advancements in AI have been fantastic, not just here at CoreLogic and even some carriers themselves, but companies such as Nearmap, Cape Analytics, Flyreel, BetterView, you name it. They are blazing a new path of automation for a simplified review process that can now be real time. So what used to take 2 weeks can now be done in a matter of hours. We can automate a virtual inspection. We can flag what we're concerned about. We can immediately notify, text message, and give an agent and broker the update and what they need to do in their portal, and we can automatically connect with the insured. Powerful process, once it's simplified, can truly be automated. And on the DIY side, do it yourself, we find that 2/3 of consumers, when invited, will actually take pictures of their property and submit them for underwriting. So a truly transformational engagement model can be achieved in underwriting, which is much faster and eliminates nearly all the friction that's left in the consumer experience for underwriting. Now on the claims side, many claims departments that we work with have anywhere from half a dozen to a dozen or more discrete workflows for how to scope and estimate a claim. And there's good reason for this. Over the years, becoming more efficient meant putting all similar claims together and handling them. What we found now with the advent of all these technology, data, and analytic sources is we can actually go the other way and simplify how claims get handled. In many cases, we can reduce claim workflows themselves significantly, and within each workflow, we're averaging between 20 and 40% of the steps in that workflow that can then be automated. Once we have a streamlined process, we can then invite a consumer to participate, and what we find through our consumer participation product called Link is that when Link connects into a streamlined claim workflow, 2/3 of policyholders accept the ability to participate through a mobile device within 1 day, and between 50 and 70% of the call center time that they would normally spend finding out where the claim is disappears. Better customer experience connected into a better workflow. And so this is the true transformation. The adjuster, the claim professional, spends more time with the consumer, advising them, consoling them, helping them find alternative living, adding value, and helping that consumer or that business owner get back up on their feet. And less time filling out paperwork, rekeying information, and ultimately, less frustration in the process. So these are 2 examples of how a streamlined workflow, digital hub technology, and data and analytics smartly applied can truly transform the workflow and the experience. So back to the quiz. In my opinion, workflow is the most important thing we can simplify. Technology is here today to make a simplified process disappear. But the process has to be simple, and once we've done that, we can then think of consumer experience as a window to our house. With a streamlined workflow, we get the benefit of cost efficiencies, better quality, and then we can think of consumer experience as a window to our business and our operation, not a facade that sits out front. Because when we have people, before COVID, when we had company over, we didn't eat out in the yard. And I think that's really how we should think as a business now. As an industry, we want to invite consumers into our home to a much better and more fulfilling experience through claims and underwriting workflow. So on behalf of the entire team here at CoreLogic, who lives, eats, and breathes digital transformation, and is just so thrilled about deploying all of the energy that we have in the industry with some really unique solutions and partners that will enable this new digital journey. I wish you success and all the best in your endeavors, and I'd love to hear from you. So reach out and give me a call. I'd love to chat more about your experiences and learn from each other.